If you're like me, you might appreciate some books to read. There are so many fabulous books published every day, and I am always looking for suggestions, actually, because just like reviews on skincare products, I like to hear what people are saying about particular books. And so hopefully this is that for you. Hello, everyone. I'm Sharri Harmel, and this is Your Next Chapter, where we talk honestly about what it means to design a fabulous, meaningful next chapter of life, especially for women 50 plus. And I hope these books do just that for you, inspire you to think bigger and feel more courageous to go after your dreams. So let's dive in. Let's not wait any longer. Okay, first on the list is a book called The Science of Stuck by Britt Frank. I loved this book. It mesmerized me, honestly. I was coming back, or I think I was coming back after a trip to Minnesota. I picked it up at the airport, I think, and dove into it. I absolutely loved it. And I loved it because it's research based for those of you who are like, oh, don't get me the fuzzy wuzzy stuff. I want hardcore facts. This is a research based toolkit for, I'm reading from the review, moving past what's holding you back, I should say, in life, in love, and in work. Now, we all experience, feeling stuck. And we've tried the affirmations, we've tried different kinds of therapies. And one of the things that they talk about is that you know, we often find ourselves unable to take that leap, unable to move forward. I did a book launch not that long ago, and most of the women in the room had a very clear idea of what it was that they wanted to accomplish in their next chapters, but they were stuck. They called it imposter syndrome, which I think is just a form of being stuck, actually. And what I thought was so cool about this book is that the book talks about it's not just mind over matter. It's not just, take care, do the affirmations and you'll convince yourself that everything is okay. One of the things they actually discuss in the book is why talking alone doesn't work. It has to be connected to feelings. And I thought that was so amazing that someone admitted that feelings are what actually impacts thoughts. And the writer, Britt Frank, talks about the difference between feelings, emotions, and thoughts, and what are the differences, and how our emotions are connected to the stories that we've experienced, the stories that we tell ourselves, which is, if you go back to imposter syndrome, is actually what imposter syndrome is all about. It's a one big fat story. And the stories create the feelings and the emotions that then drive our thoughts. And so I think everyone should take a look at this. Actually, it talks about every therapist, even because it talks about the shortcomings of CBT therapy. And yeah, it talks about friendships. I don't know how to say it other than this was fantastic. I have tabbed things, underlined things. So that's a clue that this was a great book for me to read. And hopefully you too. Another nonfiction, sort of memoir, is a book called The Country Commonplace Book by Miranda Mills. Miranda is amazing. She's got a YouTube channel, Instagram. She really had a platform before many of those were popular. I really enjoy Miranda, excuse me. She's a Brit. And for those of you that don't know what a commonplace book is, I thought this was so interesting. They really are something that's been around for a very long time. And it's described as commonplace books have been types of journals used to record favorite passages from books or poetry, extracts from letters, proverbs, lists, shared recipes, quotes, prayers, lyrics of songs, and they have been kept for centuries. And I recognize that my moleskin journals that I keep annually, and I actually put the year on the side of those journals, are actually commonplace books because they are really a combination of all kinds of things that just pop out at me that I love. Miranda's book, though, is so cool because it's split up by season, which I thought was really a great way of doing it. And, it's within, I'm at summer. Let's take us to autumn. Let's see if I can get you to autumn. Oh, baked apples. Don't you love that? Let's see if I can find you the page because her illustrations are just beautiful. Isn't that pretty? I can't seem to get it in the center of the camera. I love it. And then there are in this, she's got all kinds of journal entries, quotes, poems, excerpts from books. Autumn here in North America, anyways, is so much about apples. And so there's all kinds of apple recipes, books to read under an apple tree. Don't you love it? Something told to the wild goose, wild peaches. It just goes on and on. List of apple varieties with unusual names. I thought that was so fun. So this is a kind of book that I think you'd have like next to your bed, maybe take a look at before you fall asleep, especially if you're someone who struggles to fall asleep. I think this is a very calming book. Actually, Miranda's voice is unbelievably soothing. So I cannot recommend Miranda's book enough. It's wonderful. Okay, now we're going to go into fiction. The first book, actually, Antoine Laurent is a Frenchman, French author, and all of his books have been translated into English, so people like me can read them. And I love his books. They're always little. They're not big, heavy books. So it's something that you can take on a trip or you can take on the subway with you or whatever. But this book I actually highlighted over on Substack because I talked on Substack about how do I want to say it? That I kind of looked at myself as almost like the little match girl. Actually, a therapist referred to me as the little match girl. And because I would go around and collect, I was a paper girl, and I'd have to, in those days, 100 years ago, I had to go and collect money for the newspaper subscriptions. And you always had to do it at night because in those days you had to wait till everyone was home. The women always said they didn't have any money. And so I'm out trekking up and down the street in the dark. And I was always afraid. But what helped me was looking in other people's windows, believe it or not, and imagining a life, a family inside of those homes, because to me, they always looked fantastic in comparison to where I came from. But let me just give you a little taste. And the carriage door, just so you know, in Paris, when you're walking down the street in Paris and you see the entrance to someone's home, it's typically large carriage doors because the carriages would actually go into through those doors. There's always a kind of a overhang, and then you would end up in the center, and the apartment buildings or the apartments were around this kind of center courtyard. And so, anyways, he talks about carriage doors. I just wanted you to know what that was. The carriage door closes heavily at your back, and you stand for a few seconds in the gloom, feeling for the once illuminated switch whose tiny bulb has long since fizzled out. Yellow light spills over the stonework and cobbles from the dusty, opalescent glass lantern. You make for the tree and you take out your keys, which jingle faintly as you walk up to your floor by the stone or the wooden staircase. You're inside, you're home. You pour yourself a drink, and as if by instinct, you cross to the window. So much of that statement was my life in Paris. Because in a city like Paris, you live so close to each other that even the people across the street, you can see right into their homes. You can see them having beautiful dinners. You can see them watching television in the evening. You can see them talking, playing games. You can see their apartments when they're empty. You see their cleaning people who come during the day and shake those rugs out and hang them over the windows. So I have just started Antoine Lorraine's French Windows, and I cannot wait. Next book on the French theme. It's called, and this I have not started. This is The French Kitchen by Christy Cambron. Cambron, I think I'm pronouncing that correctly. And let me just give you an idea. I'm excited about this book, but this is a to be read book. And it's two different time periods. One is Paris 1952, and the other is Northern France in 1943. And Northern France was under the control of Nazi Germany during the Second World War, the Vichy period of time. And so it's actually chronicling two different experiences, still haunted by the years. This is 1952, still haunted by the years she spent serving in the American Office of Strategic Services, which is the precursor, if you all remember, of the CIA, which is actually who Julia Child worked for in China before she and her husband went to Paris, France, and started a new chapter. So this character is haunted by the years that she worked for the Office of Strategic Services, and she finds a simple cookery class led by the indomitable chef Julia Child and unearths the tangle of gut-wrenching memories of war. So that's one aspect. And then the other is a person by the name of Magnon, which is a man. He's a French chef at the Chateau de Brutal, whose names like Himmler and Rommel and Goebbels frequent the guest list. So you get two. It's described as a historical romance set in World War II France, post-war France, and the world of Julia Child. So we've got a bit of historical fiction. We've got Julia Child coming in. I think this just looks delicious, can I say? Wonderful. Okay. Next, we're going to go an entirely different route. And I do not yet have the book because the book has not been released. And it's Peter James. Peter James, for those of you who don't know, is a mystery writer in England. This is part of a series called the Roy Grace series. And this is book 21. It's will be the most recent of his Roy Grace books. It's a mystery. It sounds fantastic. I saw an interview with the author. The author is Peter James, and one of the Palace Confidential people, Rebecca English. And I saw it on like the Palace Confidential after show or something like that. You can see it on YouTube where Rebecca English is interviewing Peter James. And the reason she's interviewing Peter James, Rebecca English is a royal correspondent. I don't know how else to put it. She follows the royal family all around it, all their engagements, and reports on what is being done. So why would Rebecca English actually interview the author, Peter James? Well, that's because his idea for the book was actually the real Queen Camilla, because this is how it starts. Her Majesty Queen Camilla is aboard the royal train heading to a charity event in Sussex when disaster strikes. The train is derailed. Is it a tragic accident or a planned attack? When minutes later a trusted aide is shot dead by a sniper, the police have their answer. And despite all the evidence, though, Roy Grace is not convinced that the Queen was the intended target, but he finds himself alone in his suspicions. So Peter James had to get the approval of Queen Camilla and the palace to actually write this book because it's a real life character, obviously, in his book. I thought it was brilliant. And as those of you who probably know or don't know, Queen Camilla is an avid reader, avid reader. And she has an amazing Instagram group that you should join because she talks all about books and highlights books and interviews. Someone is interviewing authors and whatnot. But what we loved about it, and that's what Rebecca English and Peter James talk about, is that this is not a highbrow literature. This is not literary fiction, so to speak. This is mystery, and it's just a darn good, fun read. So that is on my list. I hope it's on yours if you love mysteries. Can't wait. Let's see. Last but not least, I am going to talk about my book. My book is called Design Your Fabulous Next Chapter, and it's 7 steps to live a life with more joy and fulfillment. And I talk about the 7 steps. Now, I have to be honest with you, I am not very good at self-promotion, but hopefully that changes. A week ago, I did a book launch party for the Beacon Hill Women's Forum. And what was fascinating to me is that the women that were really engaged with how do they create their next chapter were actually in their 40s. I thought that was so fascinating. And, one of the things that so many of them talked about was what I just talked, as I said on the very beginning on the book of Stuck, which is the imposter syndrome. And we all suffer from the imposter syndrome. If you find that you can't self-promote, it's imposter syndrome, is really what it's about. If you like to shine that light on somebody else, but not on yourself, that's imposter syndrome. And you will find this particular book beneficial. So, but what I thought was so fascinating is that so many of the women talked about this, like they had these great ideas as to what they wanted to try. They're all still employed with full-time careers, but they wanted to try it on the side. And I thought that was so cool. But what got in the way for all of them was imposter syndrome. So I'm trying to be an example to myself and to others and learn that self-promotion isn't narcissistic. It's not self-centered. It just means you've got something. Obviously, if you wrote a book or you have some particular product that you want to bring out in the world, the reason you're bringing it out is to help people, to help others to step into a different life or a better life or a more beautiful life, whatever it might be. So enough of the imposter syndrome, enough of the I can't promote myself. And just so you know, in 2026, I will be offering an audio course that actually takes you through the chapters of the book, which are the 7 steps. And that was one of the things that we talked about in the book launch, which was really just one big coaching session, is where do I start to get the dreams off the shelf? And then how do I deal with some of the challenges? Not just the imposter syndrome, but how do I try on ideas, which is one of my steps. How do I try on the idea I have? And then what do I do if it needs to flip or needs to go in a different direction, pivot, so to speak. So anyways, I could have showed you, oh my gosh, so many books, so many books. Yeah, here's another one after another, but I tried to keep it small enough that it was manageable. I want you to really keep reading books. Some of my favorite YouTube channels are about books. And, I do appreciate that somebody like Queen Camilla is really promoting reading. Reading is one of my passions. And I firmly believe that maybe the rise of loneliness and even the polarization of politics and ideas, maybe even depression, is somehow connected to the decline of reading books, which is happening out there. What's different about books versus reading information online is there's no algorithm with books. You just go into a bookstore and you pick up this one and that one and whatnot. And the books that are shown to you or that catch your eye are not preset based on what your current belief system is, which is what happens online, right? If you search out a particular topic or you have a certain kind of belief about a political candidate or a person in a high-powered position, the internet will just keep showing you more and more information that supports that belief. And books don't feed us information that way. Books don't support the entrenched beliefs that we might hold. And that causes us to step out of ourselves, maybe outside of our comfort zones, and shake up those beliefs and start to step into a new perspective, maybe that we hadn't thought of before. And I think this is something, I have grandchildren, lots of them, but this is something that I think is why we need to encourage children, all kinds of children, teens, and even parents to read books because it helps them to see multiple perspectives that you don't get, and most young people don't understand that, you don't get from reading something on the internet. The articles that are shown to you or suggested to you are all based on the internet, are all based on what the algorithm thinks you believe. So that belief that is firmly entrenched gets solid, and you start to come up with sometimes rather crazy ideas, right? So, anyways, let's promote reading of books. Reading of books. I want to thank you for joining me today on your next chapter. And if this conversation resonated with you, I want you to share it with someone that you think would really like to be a part of our community, because we really are a community, a tribe of sorts. We are women who have the opportunity to think about, what do I want to do with my next chapter? And my next chapter might be 20 years, it might be 30 years. It's not the short time period that maybe our mothers or our grandmothers thought about. And on the topic of reading, if there is one book that caused you to pause and to rethink a belief that maybe you held tightly to, or maybe a book that caused you to fall in love with a new dream, share it. Share it in the comment section and over in our Substack community, which is a growing community. Let's inspire each other. I can't wait to see the books that you all propose as a book that maybe will change some of my beliefs and open me up to some new ideas and new inspiration. So let's inspire each other. And don't forget, if you haven't already, hit subscribe so that you don't miss our next chapter on designing your fabulous next chapter. Until next time, let's remember, move forward with love, a little courage, and a deep trust that something fabulous is waiting for you to begin to work on in your next chapter. Take care, everyone. Bye for now. A biento.